Welcome, everyone, to the School of Architecture, Planning, and Landscape at the University of Calgary. My name is John Brown. I'm the Dean, and it is my pleasure to have you here tonight, to welcome you here tonight, and to see such a great turnout on a maybe not quite so cold, but still January night on what is supposedly the most depressing week of the year. Not only because of the recent events down in the United States, but also just because this is the week that all the Visa cards from Visa statements or credit card statements from Christmas come due, and there's this sort of, you're trying to struggle through your New Year's resolutions and dry Januaries and all of that stuff. So yeah, it's just not a fun time. So this is a great opportunity to kind of buck that trend and to do something interesting, and it's great. It's really great to see this room filled with people. There are a lot of old friends and new acquaintances, and it's very heartwarming to have you all here. I want to start by acknowledging the land that we are meeting on today, and I think, I was thinking today as I got up and the sun was already peaking above the horizon, as it hasn't been for the last few months, that we are so connected to a place and the geography and the culture, and that we really need to take a few moments and I think every day and think about the people who have inhabited this land for so many millennia and who stewarded it so well, so incredibly well during that time, and how quickly we as a colonial culture have kind of messed that up. I was privileged to be in Los Angeles 2 weeks ago with a group of 30 of our students. We happened to be in Palm Springs touring some fabulous early modern houses when the notice of the fire breaking out in the Pacific Palisades happened. And over the course of those 4 days, we changed hotels, and there was some soot in the air, and it was all a little surreal. And I think, we made do with the tour that we had. Some of the things were closed. Fortunately, none of the significant architectural buildings burned down, but there were obviously an enormous cost that for neighborhoods and commercial outlets and that sort of thing. But I think it was really useful for all of us to see what a city is like in crisis. And it made me think about how dysfunctional so much of the places that we have created are. And that brought me again back to how resilient that way of thinking about the land is and how much we have to learn. And so on that note, and as a respectful guest on these lands, I make note that we are on the traditional territories of the people of Treaty 7, which includes the Blackfoot Confederacy, comprising the Siksika, the Piikani, and the Kainai First Nations, the Tsuut'ina First Nation, and the Stoney Nakoda, which includes the Chiniki, Bears Paw, and Goodstoney First Nations, and that also the city of Calgary is home to Métis Nation of Alberta Districts 5 and 6. So there's a couple of things I just want, a couple of announcements that I wanted to make before we get on with the main event. And the first is just to recognize the passing of architect Martin Kohos earlier this January. Martin was one of the founding partners of Kohos Evimi, which eventually became Dialogue. He was a really important city builder in Calgary. And even though he retired in 1997, his legacy continues, and his activities as a philanthropist and as a city builder and a community builder lasted long beyond that. He was a friend of the school. He founded the Kohos Evimi Traveling Scholarship, which some of the alumni in this room, I'm sure, enjoyed the benefit of. And I just want to mark the passing of someone in our community that is a big impact. Also, on a sad note, I do want to also make note of the fact that one of our alumni, Sean Labossiere, passed away He was class of 2007 and an architect working at S2. And that was I remember Sean, and he was a good architect, and he will be missed, and it was a life cut short too soon. We have, for those of you that have been looking around at the front, we have our Work Integrated Learning exhibition tonight, and I want to take a moment to recognize the firms that were part of our Work Integrated Learning endeavor this term. I think you're all here, or most of you are here, so thank you very much for mentoring our students in what we think is an exceptional and distinctive learning opportunity. For those of you that don't know, a Work Integrated Learning studio for us means that offices and the city, nonprofits pitch ideas of things that they would like to do that are not part of their commercial endeavor. It might be pro bono work, it might be a competition, it could be a piece of research that they're doing. They pitch the idea to the faculty, and if selected, they receive a group of students who will work very hard with them in their office or here on this project. And the only ask that we have is that you treat them like they're employees, like they are part of your team. You're not teaching them. They are part of a team, and they're going to learn about practice in a different way. And I think it's grown, and with the stewardship of Jason Johnson, our Associate Dean of Architecture, and Enrica Delara, our Associate Dean of Planning and Landscape, it's really grown. And with our academic lead this year, Phil Vandermeer, thank you, Phil, for doing all of this. I think it becomes a distinct component of our school. And congratulations to the students who did such a remarkable job this year. And I think we've got two students, Daniela and Lucia, who want to come up and say a couple of words. Right? Come on up.
Hello, my name is Lucia. For those of you who don't know me, I'm currently in my last year of the Master of Architecture program here at SAPL in M2. And yeah, today I'm going to tell you a little bit about what this work integrated learning experience was for me. I was part of Will Marquez's studio and his company With Purpose. We worked on this project that's near the entrance. It's this Devington Plaza. Essentially, we worked on this hospitality, entertainment, and education center for the community there. And I'd say one of the positive things that I can take away from this course was definitely the ability to engage with the community. We had various meetings throughout the semester with people from the school board and back in Devington, as well as some of the residents, developers of the project as well. And we really achieved some good work, I think. And we tried to incorporate all of their feedback into our project. And I think we achieved a successful project. Feel free to take a look at that later. And one more thing that I wanted to say as well is for those of you who are coming into the master's program, I'd encourage you to definitely choose something that you're interested in when it comes to that research piece. But there's so many things that you're going to gain as part of that experience. It really is that bridge before you graduate. You're gaining that industry experience, and yeah, it's great. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Daniela, also like Lucia, M2, and just did the work integrated learning semester last semester. I had the opportunity to work with Kasian, located here in Calgary, and our project was named Campus of the Future. It was mostly a research piece, but there was a lot of learning and getting to work with other people and collaborating in a group of 7 students. That's not necessarily easy, but it definitely makes you learn and cooperate and perhaps make compromises when it comes to design. But that's how it's going to be when we enter the workforce. So this is a great opportunity just before us graduating students enter the workforce. And also getting to go into the actual office and getting to experience the office culture. Kasian was awesome. They were giving us free coffee, so that was great. And all of the work integrated teachers are so welcoming and are willing to listen to our ideas. And like John said, we're not necessarily just students. They want to hear our opinion on the project. So I think that was awesome. And for those of you starting your, or hoping to do a master's here, work integrated learning is a highlight, I would say, in the program. Thank you.
So if anybody out there is interested in doing this next year, there will be a call for proposals, and you can talk to Enrica or Jason, and there's be more information available. But I think it's a great way, and it builds into our core value proposition, which is that we're going to be the most community-embedded school of architecture, planning, and landscape in the country, if not North America. Okay, on to the main event. And it is my pleasure to introduce Leslie Webb, who is a representative of GEC Architecture, who is is the gracious sponsor of tonight's event and all of the great food that you had here, and bringing our speaker in. GEC, as you know, is an architecture firm in Calgary with offices in across the country, and they do really nice work. They've got a lot of our graduates, including Leslie, which I'm really proud of. And Leslie began her career with GEC in 2013 as a summer student, and then returned as an intern architect in 2014. And she's played a strategic role in GEC's growth and presence within the sport, community, and wellness sectors. She's been an associate since 2018 and has built a portfolio of projects across Western Canada that highlight excellence in design for health, recreation, and activity, with a specific focus on inclusive spaces and the impact buildings have on their users' experience. So please join me in welcoming Leslie up to the stage to talk for a few minutes about GEC and to introduce our speaker.
Spectrum here. So thanks, John. I'm not going to talk too much about GEC, but rather dive into what we're here to listen to today. So on a similar theme of sort of recreation, your mental and your physical health, but at an urban scale. So Gil Penalosa is passionate about cities for all people. Because of his unique blend of experience, pragmatism, and passion, many cities worldwide seek his leadership and valuable advice, working with over 350. Gil is the founder and chair of the successful Canadian non-for-profit organization 880 and founder for Cities of Everyone. In 2022, Gil ran for mayor of Toronto and in 100 days received 100,000 votes, changing. Currently, Gil is an academic chair at Norman Foster Institute for Sustainable Cities, as well as an expert advisor to the International Society for Urban Health. He also runs his consultancy, Gil Penalosa and Associates. Gil was elected twice as chair of World Urban Parks, holds an MBA from UCLA's Anderson School of Management, and received an honorary degree from the Faculty of Urban Planning, SLU. 2023, Gil was voted into Planetizen's top 100 most influential contemporary urbanists at number 13. Welcoming Gil.
Works. Thank you. Thank you. Tonight I want to share ideas on cities. People say cities are good for children. They're good for everyone. Also, if cities are good for elders, they are good for everyone. So this is why I'm so motivated to be here to share some ideas with you on creating cities for children and for elders. Where everyone is going to be able to live healthier and happier. So that is going to be the context with very practical ideas that we could do or that you could do in Calgary. I mean, an indicator, someone said a good city is where a child on a tricycle or a person on a wheelchair can safely and joyfully go anywhere. You know, it's such a low bar, but almost none or very, very, very few neighborhoods in any city in Canada, one of the best countries in the world, meet this very low bar. And it used to be, and it can be again. I mean, this is joyful, but maybe not safely. More safely. I mean, if cities are good for children, they're going to be good for everybody. So we have seen in cities for children everywhere. And I know that you say, oh, Gil, but here we get snow. Yeah, cities, I'm going to show cities are very hot, others are very cold. And it's really nice. We're learning to do with children. I was working in Gothenburg in Sweden, where they're going to do a park. And they spend 1 year bringing 200 children every day from different schools to test ideas and games and plays. Actually, this day was raining really, really hard. The children didn't care. They said there's no such thing as bad weather. It's bad clothing. So they had proper clothing, and it was quite nice. You know, this school, when I was in Finland, it was minus 31 degrees, and 80% of the kids bike to school at minus 31. So the children, I mean, working in China, have so beautiful parks. I think we are improving a lot how we do playgrounds for children. But now we need to improve how the children can get to those parks. And it's very, very clear the benefits of physical activity. For example, imagine that Calgary, you decided that Calgary was going to be really playful. All of a sudden, you go out on the sidewalk and there is a swing. You are waiting for the bus and there's a small parkette. And it's not about money. It's having an attitude, allowing people to be playful and to change and to put a little bit of color in the city and to make it more fun and more exciting. Here, these children, you don't even have to ask them if they're having fun. You look at their faces clearly. And some might say, oh, this is really good because children, you know, it's fun and games. It's really important. Yeah, but it's not only, of course, fun and games is very, very important, but also it's because playing is how children learn. Playing is how children develop their muscle strength and their language and cognitive thinking and sense of belonging. So cities for children is really, really important. When I think of this, I think of the big bad wolf. You know, all of the children's books, for hundreds of years, there was always a wolf. The wolf was the bad one. And like the Petit Chaperon Rouge, you know, the big wolf, everywhere. And then it was adapted 100 years later in Germany, the Little Red Riding Hood, always the wolf. And then I think, okay, what are today's wolves? These are today's wolves. You know, 300 years ago, children were terrified when they say, hey, watch out, the wolf is coming. You know, sleep well. Now they're terrified is if they go out because, watch out, a car is coming, and then jump frightened. And the cars are getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and they're killing more and more people. You know, one of these in the past 20 years killed 26 people. The other one killed 26 million people. It's unthinkable. How can we allow this? I mean, clearly they don't belong in cities. I mean, if we really want to have cities for children, we need to limit the speed and the size of vehicles. You cannot have an elected official saying that they want a city for children and not limiting the speed and the size of vehicles. You want to have a big truck? Okay, you are going to pay 3 times as much taxes because your truck wastes the pavement, takes more space on the parking, is more dangerous. So only if you really, really, really need a big truck. So, and by the way, that's what they're doing in Paris. I mean, cities around the world are doing it. And of course, for children, I'm saying it's not only that, yeah, climate change is a huge issue. We're seeing the consequences at the city level, also at the personal level. I mean, we just saw LA, what is happening in LA as we speak. Even if they just elected a president that doesn't believe in climate change. Incredible. But I mean, if cities are good for children, they're going to be good for everybody. And it's the same case for elders. But it's not the case from the 20 to 60. So a city might be good for 20 to 60, it might not be good for children or older adults. You know, Calgary is not about creating a Disney World for the 20 to 60 healthy and wealthy. It's about creating cities for everyone. Before, a few minutes ago, I was talking with someone that said, oh, you know, Calgary is becoming really, really good for those, the 20 to 60 healthy and wealthy. A few weeks ago, I was working in Dubai, and I told the heads of the city, I said, you know, this city is really good if you are 20 to 60 healthy and wealthy, but it's really, really bad if you are a child or an older adult, or if you are not healthy or wealthy. I mean, we got to think also cities for elders. I mean, this is incredible. We have double the life expectancy in the last 125 years. Imagine, students, 125 years is nothing. In hundreds of thousands of years, we reach a life expectancy of about 31 years. And in only 125, we have gone to 80 in Canada, and around the world to 27 to 76. That's incredible. Why did the life expectancy increase? 2 reasons. Half of it is because fewer children are dying. Why? Because of vaccination and water, clean water and vaccination. But also we're living so much longer everywhere. Every country in the world has doubled their life expectancy, and most of it is healthy years. I don't know why we have such a negative perception. Yeah, our body ages, but not our mind. It's like Bernard Shaw said, we don't stop playing because we grow old. Actually, I changed the playing for walking. We don't stop walking because we grow old. We grow old because we stop walking. I mean, if we view aging as a decline, it's going to become a self-fulfilling prophecy. We got to fight ageism. Don't do this because you are a child. Don't talk about politics because you are too young. Oh, you cannot work because you are too old. I mean, ageism is dumb. Aging is not a problem to solve or a disease to cure. Aging is living since the day we are born. By the way, this graph is bad news at the university. The curve of happiness. Our happiest time in life is childhood and old age. Sorry to tell you that. But most of you are around here, you know. It's hard. Am I going to get a job? I'm not going to get a job. Am I going to get a partner? No partner. I'm going to be able to find a house or rent or do or whatever. But then you're going to live longer. I mean, but also you young people, you got to care about the older people. Why? Because it's your grandparents, it's your parents, it's yourselves, if you are lucky. You know, the people that have ever lived to 60 in the history of humanity, half are alive today. That's incredible. I mean, olders, people over 60 is 1/4 of our life or more. It's incredible. And people over 60, they are gardening and they are having an ice cream and playing with their grandchildren in the park. I mean, by the way, the people over 60 are going to double in Calgary. And the people over 80 are going to quadruple. I mean, we have learned how to survive, but now we need to learn how to live. This is really, really critical for the School of Architecture, Planning, and Landscape. I mean, what is your role? What is your role? Because there's a huge need and a huge opportunity. You know, the elders are givers. They're not takers. I see everywhere working in Arizona, in the Desert Botanical Garden, they got 400 volunteers, all of them over 55. Elders are assets of the community. They are not liabilities. We really got to change the conversation. We have added years to our lives, but we need to add life to those years. Because you go to the cities and they talk, but they are not doing. We got to be able to live older, healthier, happier. By the way, you don't really have to do this to live older, healthier, and happier. You can just ride a bike and it's really nice. You know, by the way, inequality is felt mostly in the leisure time. So for everybody, young and old, we gotta focus on that leisure activity because it's really important. The elders are the segment of the population that has the most amount of leisure time. So they are also the ones that should have the most amount of programs to be able to live healthy and to live happy. But the cities talk about it, but they don't do anything. I mean, I live in Toronto. In Toronto, 1 out of 4 people are over 60. So 25%. But only 3% of the programs in parks and recreation is for people over 60. And I asked Mayor Chow, hey, Mayor, this is really crazy. And I said, why don't we do something else? No, my focus is children. I said, Mayor, you don't need to choose. I'm not saying don't do things with children. I said, by the way, Mayor, when I'm talking about older adults, I'm talking about you. You are 67. Yeah, you go paddle and you go canoeing. Well, that's what people over 60 do. I mean, we gotta be able to live healthier. Everybody, not only the elders, the children. That's talking about elders and children. That's why I came up with 880 cities. I mean, what's 880 cities? It's not about parks or streets or walking or cycling. They are the means, not the end. The end is how can we help create successful cities. And I like to see the venues where I'm going to speak. I was working in Warsaw, in Poland, and I was going to speak here. I go the night before, and all of these people are dancing. And I said, how am I going to compete the next night? And I'm going to be speaking. And this was the DJ Vika. You know, the segment of the population that creates the most amount of new businesses in US and Canada are people 60 to 70. 60 to 70. It's people like Vika that she bought the music equipment and goes from park to park organizing dances. But let's get back to 880. So it's about how to help create healthy and successful cities where people are going to live happier. And people say, Gil, can my children walk to school? Can my grandparents ride their bike to get eggs or milk? I say, well, it's the 880 rule of common sense. But common sense seems to be the least common of the senses. Step number one, think of a child that you love, your son, your daughter, your grandchild, neighbor, someone around 8 years old. And once you have that child in mind, step number two, think of someone around 80-year-old that you love, your parents, your grandparents, your brothers, your sisters, anyone, a former teacher, professor, someone that you are affectionate. And once you have the child and the older adult in mind, then you go to step number three. Would you send the child and the older adult walking to the park or to public transit? Would you send them riding their bike? Would they feel safe? Would you feel safe? If you do it because he's safe enough. If you would not, it's because he's not, and we gotta do it better. I mean, what if everything that we did in Calgary, the sidewalk, the crosswalk, the park, this building, the library, the restaurants, everything had to be good for an 8 and an 80-year-old. Not 8 to 80, 8 and 80 as an indicator. Because if it's good for the 8 and it's good for the 80, it's gonna be good for everybody from 0 to over 100. We need to stop building cities as if everybody was 30-year-old and athletic and create cities for everyone. 880 cities for everyone. That is the concept where we're going to live healthier and happier. We need to decide how do we want to live. For example, in Ontario, we are amalgamating schools everywhere for the last 15 years. Not only Ford, but the two previous premiers also. Why? Because we got a small community with 3 elementary schools, all of them within walking distance, and then they build one gigantic elementary and they close the others. Because they save, instead of 3 principals, now they have 1. But before they had schools that were walk to. The children made friends and they would walk to their friend's house. Now they got a gigantic school and they need to be driven too. We gotta keep in mind, more than designing cities, what we are designing is a way of life. This is why this school at the University of Calgary is so important, because the neighborhoods is going to be where we live. And it's very different how we live depending on the neighborhood. I think we got to create neighborhood cities so that we don't just evaluate the city, but each one of the neighborhoods, because the neighborhood is a way of life. I mean, I've been very lucky to have worked in over 350 cities around the world. Next week, I'm going to be in The Hague working with the mayor and his team on a plan of The Hague in 2050 and so on. And then I'm going to go to Florida and others. But in my previous life, I was commissioner in Bogota. And then when I was in Bogota, Bogota is the capital of Colombia in the northern tip of South America. I had like 50 priorities. And someone said, oh, Gil, when you got 50 priorities, you have none. So then I downsized to 3. One of them was a gigantic park, another one was an open street program, and the other one was the restructure. I mean, we built in one term over 200 parks, all over the city, small and medium and large. This was one of them. The Pope came here, gave a mass for 1 million people, and then the Pope left and nothing happened. Nothing happened in 27 years. Why nothing happened? Because change is hard. In Calgary or Bogota or Copenhagen or Tokyo, anywhere, change is hard. Because when you try to change for small projects, for large projects, the cave people show up. You are going to know them because they are everywhere. They are the citizens against virtually everything. By the way, it's not the older adults, the ones that are cave, because they get an image. Why? Because, the NIMBYs and the cave people are just a bunch of idiots that want to go against everything. What is the problem? That people don't show up. So you do a public meeting and only 3 people show up, and they are older adults, and then they oppose, and then they say, old. I worked with older adults in the US in more than 20 states. Older adults are progressive. Older adults, the boomers were the hippies of the 60s and 70s. They were the white people marching for racial equality. They were the men marching for gender equality. Get those boomers on board. But anyway, don't take no for an answer. I didn't take no for an answer. And in 4 years, we turned it into this magnificent park for active, for passive, for contemplative recreation. And I'll talk more about parks afterwards, but I just want to show you some of the images because sometimes are things that you want to do by yourself or with a friend or with 40,000 people. The parks are really something amazing about creating equality and healthy and sustainability. After I was mayor, the following term, one of my brothers became mayor and he built this beautiful library in one of the corners. And some of you are thinking about design. These are the kind of things. It's not, don't study architecture to go and do a nice, cute, single family home. Those are going to disappear eventually. But you can do this. Look at this magnificent public library in the middle of a park. 4 of these were built, the other 3 in the middle of the slums. Beautiful, really exciting. And then, but of course, the parks, it's not only about doing one gigantic park. Most of the 200 that I did, and then I left a lot of the signs. And when my brother was mayor, he did another 800. We did, like in 7 years, over 1,000 parks. But most of them were in very, very poor areas. And people say, why are you doing so many parks when the poor people have so many needs? I say, yeah, of course, you got to do also health. And also, you got to do education. But when the poor people feel miserable, it's in the leisure time. When they are working at a bank, the CEO or the person cleaning floors, they have a similar experience. Maybe even the CEO has more anxiety. But in the leisure time, the CEO has cottages and country clubs and a huge house and restaurants and theaters and all. The minimum wage worker doesn't have. So whenever we go to low-income areas, we got to do everything that is public better. Better parks and better sidewalks and better bike lanes and better libraries and better schools, better everything. I also found a small program of open streets. Just a few kilometers and a few thousand people, and we turned it into the world's largest pop-up park. It's simple. Open streets to people, close them to cars, and the magic happens. We went from a few kilometers to 126. Actually, we went to 121. In the last 24 years, they have increased 4 kilometers. But, so whenever you can do things, do as much as possible. And this is something that is really nice because it's young and old and rich and poor and fat and skinny. Everybody mixes. 1 out of 5 people comes out every Sunday and holiday. This is 100% about urban health. Why this is so good? Because it changes our minds. All of a sudden, we realize the streets are public spaces. And they can have different uses according to the time of the day of the week of the year. It's about social integration. For example, in Calgary, you could easily do it 4 months of the year. Start next year. Or this year. What next year? We're in January. Do it this year. Even start the first Sunday of every month. May, June, July, August, September. What is the risk? Nothing. You are not building arenas or gymnasiums. If it doesn't work, okay, you don't do it next year. But if it works, next year you do it weekly. And if maybe some people don't want to do it all because it's in India or it's in Bogota. It also, we meet as equals, and that's really powerful. Then tell them that Paris does it. Paris does it every Sunday, even during the winter. It's low cost. All you need is people and streets. It's low risk. You are not building gymnasiums or arenas. And the benefits, wow, are amazing. It's good for mental and physical health, economic development, environment, happiness. That's why hundreds of cities are doing it. Let me show you a couple of them. 1 minute. It is fun, very fun. And you can do it here or in Red Deer or in any, it works in cities of 50,000, of 100,000, 1 million, 10 million. Also, 280 kilometers of protected bike lanes in 3 years. Because you gotta have a network. Some places were so poor that it's almost impossible for you in Calgary to imagine the level of poverty. And look what happens when you do really nice bike lanes and really nice sidewalks. Why? Because it's safer. But also because we need to dignify the people that walk and the people that bike. As you can see, the road for cars is not even paved. And of course, the few people there that had cars were very powerful and they wanted it paved. But instead, special trees according to the microclimate and lights and things. And this transforms cities. It shows, when you have a really nice protected bike lane, it shows that a citizen on a $30 bicycle is as important as someone on a $50,000 car. That's why some of these symbols are really critical, are important. We really gotta do it well. When my brother was mayor, where the city was growing, look at this amazing, like a freeway for bicycles and pedestrians, where all of this was gonna be growing, even before the buildings were done. And then little by little, they were being done. These are the kind of things that we should be thinking about. I mean, why am I showing you these examples of Bogota? Because Bogota is much poorer than any city in Alberta, much poorer than Calgary. So it's not about the money. And I've been dealing with people and cities for a long time. So the second part now, I wanna focus on Calgary being sustainable, equitable, fun, where everyone can live healthier and happier. So I'm gonna take you through 8 actions. The first one, you need a shared vision. It's about how do we wanna live? How do we want to move? I mean, without a vision, it's just chaos. It's just chaos. Even people that are doing things. The vision is really simple. It's like the jigsaw puzzle. It's like the image on a jigsaw puzzle. You know where you're going, so it doesn't really matter which piece of the puzzle you're doing, as long as there are pieces of the same puzzle. But it's not only about the vision. You gotta have action, action, action. It's really critical because without action, you become frustrated. You know what you want to do, but you don't do it. But if you have a shared vision and action, you're going to create the Calgary that you want. I mean, and when you have a really good vision, when you know where it's going, you can even change because many cities are ready, aim, fire. But what they do is ready, aim, 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 aim. They never fire. They do a master plan and then another one, and 5 years later another and another, and they never do. But if you have a good vision, maybe you can even eliminate the aim and do ready, aim, fire, 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 fire. And then once in a while you aim a little bit, and then because it's about doing. And all of this is also about urban health and post-pandemic even more. I mean, the cities is where the healthiest people live. But cities is also where the unhealthiest people live. I mean, and when I'm talking about urban health, I'm really talking about the effects of the urban environment on people's health. The social, the natural, the built environment, and how they interrelate. For example, natural is the tree canopy. In Toronto, we got 28% tree canopy. But the wealthy neighborhoods have over 50%. The low income, less than 10%, many less than 5%. That's why I like neighborhood cities, not city, because when you have citywide statistics, you don't really know the reality. So there is a huge opportunity and responsibility. By the way, the population is decreasing. Many of you are young, so you haven't heard that much. But for us that are not as young, for years and years, the population was growing and growing and growing. Not anymore. Now it's decreasing. You know, you're going to have 2.1 children per woman to not grow or not decrease. Well, all of the countries in pink or red is below that. Canada was at 153. On the new census just came out at 133. Really, really low. And around the world, the population is going to level off in about 40 years, and then it's going to decrease. Most of the countries, almost all of the countries, so-called developed, many more people are dying than being born. And by 2100, look, China is going to lose like 300 million people. Even India is going to peak and is going to already decrease by 100 million people. And when we talk about cities, everything that I'm talking about today is equally applicable to cities of 50,000 people or 1 million or 5 million because the issues are similar. If you live in a city of 50,000 and you are under 16, you don't drive. If you live in a city of 10 million, you need tree canopy. The issues are very similar. Let's take a city like Calgary, 1.5 million people. Think of it as 60 neighborhoods of 25,000 people each. Does each one of those 60 have the tree canopy and the park and the library? Another revolution that is happening now with COVID and people working from home or hybrid is that small cities got a new lease of life. But only if they're good, because they're not good. Sometimes people in small cities, they think they're good because they're small. No. Why are they small? A comedian in the US said, why do you think cities are small? And they said, oh, because they're horrible. Right. No one wants to live there. Their children, once they get out of there and they never go back. Oh, those small communities, they gotta think of themselves as one of those 25,000 people neighborhood. Make it really nice so that people might live there. Maybe if people were gonna live and had to commute 5 days a week, maybe they said, oh, I don't wanna commute 2 hours. But if it's only 2 or 3 days, they said, oh, maybe I do if the quality of life is good. But it has to be good. I mean, how we build cities is where people are gonna live for hundreds and hundreds of years. Keep this in mind. How cities are built is the most important decision of our time. I was talking to some of the students here from first year. Look, second, we gotta build cities for people. I mean, it sounds so obvious, but it's not, because in the last 100 years, this is how we've been building cities. It's not the same if you live in that neighborhood than if you live on this other one. Look, the US is the wealthiest country in the world, and look at these cities by postal code, by neighborhood. In the neighborhoods that are dark red, the life expectancy is 60. Light pink is 90. How can we even accept as normal that if you happen to be born in one neighborhood, you are going to live to 60, 10 minutes away is going to be 90? It looks like it was a different planet, not only a different city. It's because we've been focusing on car, and not on people's happiness. And this is how we've been doing the cities. We invest in billions and billions on this. We haven't even solved mobility. This is at the same scale, Florence, Italy, and a highway intersection in Atlanta. It seems like we have learned how to do cities, and we unlearn. Maybe when the car arrived 100 years ago, maybe we should have done a grid for people walking and cycling, and another grid for the cars. Because what we did in the US, Canada, and many other places is that we destroyed the cities. Think of this city. How would children go to school or parents go and get bread or milk? All of them were walking until they destroyed the city. Not one or two, all of them. It was really incredible how we just tore apart all of these cities. Because that's a big issue that all of you have at the school, the students, is we got to improve the cities that we have today. We got to create great cities for many people. But the cities don't decide the what. The amount of population is at the national level. But the cities do decide the how. This is being done now. Look at this. This is social housing. No dignity. Instead of parks, they do parking lots. It's everything on red is surface parking. Imagine if you are a child, someone with disabilities. So the reality is that most of what we have done in the last 70 years, 75 years, is not very good. Except with few isolated cases like acupuncture. And when I say it's not very good, it's because it's not very good for physical, mental, and social health. It's not very good for quality of air, quality of water, climate change, economic development. I mean, we have learned how to do quantity, but not quality. We have learned to survive. Now we gotta learn how to live. We need to improve the cities that we have today. We gotta manage cities radically different. So 3, we gotta have fun cities. Calgary has to become a fun city. Why? Because if you're good at anything, if you're good at making coffee, or you are a good nurse, or a good teacher, or a good professor, you can live anywhere. Not anywhere in Alberta, anywhere in the world. A good city is a competitive advantage that cannot be copied. But a bad city is very hard to fix. So that nurse, when you start saying, oh, the teacher at my school, at my kid's school is terrible, well, it's because maybe you are not getting the cream of the crop. maybe you are getting the leftovers. How can Calgary or Lethbridge or Red Deer or whatever get the best nurses and the best pizza makers and the best professors and the best whatever? Having a good city. Having a good city. I think the competition between countries and cities is going to be about people. How to retain people. How to attract people. Every day, public sector and private sector in Calgary should be waking up saying, why live in Calgary? How can we retain people? I mean, in the past, the cities were places to work. Now are becoming places to live and to play. That's why being playful and fun is so critical. The sidewalk, the crosswalk, the park, the library, especially things that are free are really, really critical. We gotta focus on improving the well-being. Now we're bombarded with advertising on well-being for the person, but the cities gotta make well-being the easy option. Of course, we gotta focus on the most vulnerable, or everyone that is poor, people with disabilities, ethnic and racial minorities, small children and olders. But well-being is, what is well-being? Well-being, simple, it's being well. So let me even clarify, well-being, part of well-being is health. And health is physical, mental, social. And when we're talking about this, when we talk about physical, it's the body. When we talk about mental, it's the brain. When talking about social, it's the relations. Also, we need to be happy. Let me also clarify what I mean by happy. It's sustainable happiness. Sustainable happiness is the one that contributes to the individual, the community, or the global well-being. As long as it doesn't exploit other people, the environment, or future generations. And when we talk about equity, it's about giving everybody what they need to be successful, which is very different to equality, because equality is giving everybody the same. But if you are running a 100-meter race, and someone is already at the 60 meters, and they say, oh, no, now it's equality. Everybody has the same chance, but you are still having one start at 0 and the other one at 60. No, first you got to have equality before you can actually, I mean, it's like, this is equality. Everybody getting the same. This is equity. And someone said maybe this is reality. It's even worse than what we've been thinking. But all of you are so smart and all of you really think outside the box that maybe it's not about moving boxes. Maybe it's about tearing down the walls. So equality and equity, we got to have equity in order to have equality. I mean, well-being, let me give you 5 actions. 1, we got to eat more green-based, more plant-based. So we got to have, what can the city do to help so that we eat better? Well, let's have farmers markets. Even in the winter, let's put them indoors. Food markets. Let's have urban gardening in the schools, in the libraries, in the parks. Let's have allotment gardens. Even multi-generation allotment gardens. Let's have more lawns like the one at the bottom and less like the one on the top. In every place that is public, the universities, the library, the parks, let's eliminate everything that is fried food, all the sugary drinks. If you want to buy a Coke and bring it into the park, that's fine, but you are not going to be able to buy it in the park. I mean, everything that is public has to have a higher standard. Let's make it easy to be healthier. Sleep. We got to sleep 8 hours a day. I'm not talking about homelessness. Home is a human rights issue. But if you are not homeless, you got to sleep 8 hours a day. Students, when you don't sleep 8 hours, when you sleep 5 hours, you go to the university and you forget everything. But if you are 18, people say, oh, he or she has so many things on their mind. But if you happen to be 70, then they say, oh, it's a senior moment. No, it's not a senior moment. It's because if the 70-year-old sleeps 5 hours or the 18-year-old sleeps 5 hours, both are going to forget. We got to sleep 8 hours. It's really important. If you sleep 1 hour less, you lose 20% of the efficiency. That's why the sports teams now have experts on sleeping. And we overvalue the people that go 24 hours doing a work. Yeah, then they go to work and it's like a stationary bike. You pedal and pedal, but you don't go anywhere. You know, when people are drowsy and they're driving, they kill more people than alcohol or drugs combined. Also sleep, wow, it's democratic, it's powerful, it's free. Number 3, we gotta socialize. If we socialize, the benefit of socializing increases the brain health, mental and emotional health, confidence, quality of life, and it decreases blood pressure and risk of Alzheimer's. Socializing is critical. The number 1 public health issue in Canada and in the US is loneliness. So we gotta work on this. And it's not about knitting in front of the computer, it's about knitting groups in the parks. This is the kind of thing that we should be doing. That's about social health and having volunteers in the parks. We need to invest in activities, group activities everywhere. And of course, number 4, close to this, is contact with nature. We gotta have nature everywhere. And it's something that is really, really important. And 5, we gotta be physically active. Since the day we are born to the day we live, we gotta be physically active. And there are many ways. These are people in Toronto, or this one when I was working in Maui, Hawaii. I mean, we are active. Look at this. This is truly amazing what active is. Decreases premature deaths, strokes, many cancers, osteoporosis, depression, anxiety, heart disease, high blood pressure, type 2 diabetes, obesity. And it's not about doing marathons. It's only 30 minutes a day. But it has to be 5 or more days a week. So there is an urgency of being physically active. By the way, this is not walking the dog. Everybody's thinking now of the injections and the pills. No, there's no magic pill. The only way that large groups of people in Calgary, the only way are going to be physically active is if people walk or bike as a normal part of everyday life. There is no city in the world, none, where you have large groups of people physically active other than walking or cycling. None. Why would Calgary be different? There's none. There's many studies that show, for example, recently I saw a study a few weeks ago in the US, the amount of gyms in the state by state, amount of gyms and amount of physical activity. There is no correlation at all. We need to be able to walk or bike as a normal part of everyday life. So number 4, we gotta walk. I mean, every single trip begins and ends walking. We walk to the bike, we walk to public transit, we walk to places. I mean, walking and cycling is not a joke, not a frivolity, as at least the little girl will tell you. Walking and cycling is the only individual mode of mobility of most people, of all children and youth around the world. So there should be like a right to be safe and enjoyable mobility. Unless you think that only the people that have the money and the age to have a car have that right to individual mobility. That's why we're talking about democracy, human rights, and equality and sustainability, because everything is linked to everything. Also walking, that's how we were created. You know, the birds, they fly, and the fish swims, but people, we walk. We walk in the middle of the winter, and when we walk, we're so happy because we use all our senses. We're walking and we see the children playing and the youth going to school. Also, we hear the birds singing. We go in front of a coffee shop and we smell the aroma. Parents and children walk, older adults walk, everybody walk. We walk in the summer, we walk in the winter, but it has to be safe, and it is not safe. Some people say Vision Zero. So they sign, oh, we are a Vision Zero city, but then they don't put the money or the actions like Toronto. So instead of being a Vision Zero, it becomes a Zero Vision city. We can improve walking. All the streets maximum speed should be 30 kilometers an hour, except the arterials. As soon as you get off an arterial into a neighborhood street, it should be 30. Why? Because if you get hit by a driver at 30, there is only 5% probability of being killed. At 50, more than 85%. And all of the studies show this. See, there's a huge difference on the speed. All of the studies show, and of course, the size of the vehicle also matters. So we gotta have citywide, 30K, and we need to enforce it. I mean, many cities have done it, hundreds of cities, Oslo. And then people say, oh, but that's Europe. No, Hoboken, New Jersey. Hoboken, New Jersey have not had one traffic death in the last 5 years. So Calgary could do it. Edmonton could do it, anybody, but you gotta put people first. I know it's not people first when we put a post in the middle of the sidewalk. The mayor of a city took me on a tour. He said, oh, look, we're putting lights on the sidewalk. So I said, how nice you put lights on the sidewalk. How not so nice that you're putting the post in the middle of the sidewalk. And then he took me to a neighborhood, brand new sidewalks. And look at the brand new sidewalks. They look like a roller coaster. Imagine if you have a walker or if you are blind. It's so much cheaper to do the sidewalk perfectly flat. Maybe you can have the first 20% with a ramp, but 80% has to be flat. In Toronto, 1 out of 4 streets do not have a sidewalk. It's so shameful. And the mayors, including the current one, who calls herself progressive, have not had the guts to do sidewalks. There is almost nothing as important. I mean, the sidewalks is almost the most important infrastructure in any city. When you are on the street, on bikes, on cars, you're going from point A to point B. Not on the sidewalks. You say, oh, I'm going to go for a coffee. And you take 50 minutes because you met someone, you decided, you sat down, you were watching people. You go to any city, you leave your pack, and you go on the sidewalk, you get a feel for the city, for the belonging. The activities that they do, you meet the boyfriends and girlfriends and neighbors and people selling fruits and coffee. The sidewalks are the life of the city, are so important. The sidewalks remind us that walking is much more than walking. This is in Cape Town, narrowing the corners so that the crossing is very small. 3 generations in different parts of the world enjoying. I love working in Buenos Aires because on the sidewalks I see people dancing tango. And these are the kind of things that we should look at Oakland. You see, when Oakland, the pandemic came, the mayor said, tomorrow, every street in Oakland, California, is going to be slow street. So they did 115 kilometers at less than 10 kilometers per hour. Only the people that live on the street. So if you're on a big road on an arterial and you're on a traffic jam, you have to wait. You don't cut through the neighborhood full speed. And now the children came out and people with disabilities. No noise, no pollution, safety, community. I mean, should in Calgary do it everywhere? I mean, start with one neighborhood and then the next and the next and the next. 5, we gotta have sustainable mobility because walking is not the only one. It's also riding bicycles, using transit, new uses of cars, but we gotta have the priority, pedestrians, then cyclists and transit, and then people doing business, and then private cars. You could have this 6 months of the year, 3 generations on a bike. I mean, if we want to improve bikeability, if it's not safe for an 8 and an 80-year-old, it's nothing. Don't even call it a bike lane. Some people say, oh, this is better than nothing. No, it's not better than nothing. In February, I'm going to work in Tampa. This is in Florida. Look at this, 5 lanes for cars, and they have 50 miles an hour, so like 70 kilometers. Who's going to bike there? This is worse than nothing because then no one is going to bike, and then the elected officials say, oh, let's not invest more in cycling infrastructure because I don't see cyclists. How can you see cyclists at that? I mean, we know what needs to be done. It's not for the professional cyclists. It's for the children. It's for the adults. It's for everybody, for the novice. These are the kind of cities that we should be building, and it's completely doable. The small children are really, really critical because then they become adults and then they continue to walk and to bike and to enjoy it. I mean, we're going to have more people cycling. If you want more people cycling in Calgary, there's only 2 actions. One is to lower the speed in the streets. And number 2, create a network of protected bikeways. So everything I said about 30K for walking is also for cycling. But you need to add AAA bike lanes. What is AAA? For all ages and abilities. But you need to have connectivity. Connectivity. If you don't have connectivity, it doesn't click. That's why doing cycling infrastructure is so difficult. Because sometimes cities do, oh, let's do this 2 kilometers and see if people use it. No, they won't use it because it's not connecting anything with anything. If you're going to invest in cycling, you need to do a network. Otherwise, it's not going to click. So we really got to have those networks and talk about, even when you go to city council, bring the proposal for a network. Not kilometer by kilometer, because then it's going to take you a century. You got to think of people opening the doors and daytime and nighttime. And if you don't want to do this like in Paris, I just paint a line, put a bollard every 2 meters, and it's going to make a huge difference. Even do this like they're doing in Poland. They put this, and these are pebbles that absorb the sun during the day, and then lights for 10 hours at night. That's why people back in Amsterdam, because there's a network, there's connectivity. And also in Copenhagen, because there's connectivity. I mean, this is a beautiful street anywhere in the world. These are the kind of things. I mean, sometimes people say in sustainable mobility and cars, is it the chicken or the egg? We don't put more public transit because few people are using it. And few people are using it because there is not enough public transit. No, it's very simple. You need to have good public transit. You need to have the network of bikeways. For example, in transit. One of my brothers said, a civilized city is not the one where the poor have cars, it's where the rich use public transit. We gotta have public transit for everybody. I mean, some part of it is marketing, the name, the colors, the stations. The mayor of Malmo in Sweden told me the citizens didn't like buses. So what did he do? He put noses on the bus, he covered the wheels, and now they look like trains. And the citizens called them superbus. I mean, the statistics is very clear from the space or the CO2 that walking and cycling and transit is so much better. Also, the amount of people that move and that cross is really simple. So all of the statistics exist. But if we want people to use transit, it has to have speed, frequency, and connectivity, and affordability too. And then people are going to use it. I mean, it's rapid not if the wheels are rubber or metal, it's if it has dedicated lanes. Pretty easy to go in and out and prepaid fares. I mean, some people say, oh, but there is no physical space for transit. Well, do the mobility math. Do you want to have one of these or 140 of those? One of these or 145 of those? I mean, walking, cycling, and transit takes a lot less space. Transit and housing is two sides of the same coin. When my brother started doing the first BRT in Bogota, people said, are you crazy? It's like a subway but above ground. Not even the World Bank that was going to fund it believed. This used to be the transportation system. The first line was done in 36 months from starting to finish. Hundreds and hundreds of houses were either purchased or expropriated so that there could be sidewalks and bike lanes and trees, not just those. I mean, the idea is simple. There was enough money either to do one subway or all of these lines. So you gotta compare always with X amount of money, what can you do? In Toronto, we had a place, Scarborough, that we were gonna do 21 stop, LRT. All of Scarborough was gonna have amazing until we elected a totally idiot as mayor who was drug addict, heroin, cocaine, brought prostitutes to City Hall. Rob Ford, his brother now is the Premier of Ontario. And he said, subway, subway, subway. And he changed 21 stops LRT for one-stop subway. One was going to cost $2.5 billion. The other one is costing about $8 billion. I mean, this is the BRT in Bogota, and still a lot new lines are being built. And it's, I mean, when they say there's not enough space for cars and BRT, okay, then there are no cars. It's not no BRT, it's no cars. And then more areas for more public spaces. And this is, I don't know why in Canada we don't even contemplate the possibility. Now in the US, there are many, dozens and dozens and dozens of BRTs being built all over the US. But here in Canada, sometimes we just buy a new bus and we say, oh, that's a BRT. No, if it doesn't have a dedicated lane and all of this. I mean, mobility, let me tell you a couple of things that are counterintuitive. It doesn't improve public transit with economic development. Maybe just opposite because there are more cars. Another is counterintuitive is that bigger roads do not solve transit. I mean, think of induced demand. Sometimes you say, oh, we're going to build, there's a traffic jam on this highway, we're going to do one more lane. Just thinking about the one more lane, people change their behaviors. They were going to register their kids for a class, but not because there were traffic jams. Oh, no, let's do it because there's going to be a new line. They were going to buy a house far away, but they said, no, it's too far. Oh, no, but there's going to be a new lane. So everybody's thinking of the new lane. When the new lane is built, it's already full. Non-rail base may be more appropriate because it's cheaper. You can do more. Also, rail is sexy. That's why subways, subways, subways. It used to be the other way. I mean, BRT in many ways is democratic because it's one bus with 120 people should have the right of space of 120 cars with one people. Also, there is no large city in the world that has enough money to do everything on rail. Even London, more than half of the people use buses, although they have an amazing subway structure. Also, the cost operation on a metro is $5 to $7, a BRT 0.75 cents. And the reality, people say, oh, but the train is faster. Well, it's door to door. When you have buses, you can have a lot of stops very close by. When you have a train, no, because the stations are very, very expensive. So we gotta think of those issues. So those are options. And also using cars. I mean, I got nothing against cars. Now we have hydrogen cars, electric cars, even driverless cars are coming. And there are many scenarios. People do beautiful drawings of this. Oh, everybody's gonna fit. They say with driverless cars, we're not gonna have traffic jams. As if the traffic jam was the driver. No, it's the car. If we don't change our behavior, it doesn't matter what type of car, as long as there are cars, there is simply not enough space. Also, the cars, I got nothing against them, but remember when we asked people to stay home for a few days, and then all over the world, the air became so much cleaner? They told us the air wasn't clean, but we didn't know how bad it was until this happened. So we now know if we want to go to Milan and breathe this air, or if Milan is going to have this kind of air. We know what is possible. Also, they take a lot of space. This is, and the drive-thrus. Also, they're very, very expensive in Canada. If you have a car, it costs you 20 to 25% of your income. If you have walk or bike and take public transit, it's going to be only 4%. So there is nothing that you could do to improve the economy of a family than allowing them to downsize from 2 cars to 1 or 1 to 0. It's like winning the lottery. Now they're going to have 16% more every year, this year, next, and next, and next, forever. What are they going to do with the 16%? They're going to spend it in the local economy, in the restaurants, in the bars, fixing their houses. That's from the point of view of cash flow. From the point of view of capital, we have a huge housing crisis, and we build houses where 20, 30% of the house is for the car. I mean, look at this street. You just take away the cars and it changes. And then you put a little bit of trees and it goes. I mean, all of this is doable. So all of you that want to design, 6, we got to create neighborhoods. Neighborhood city is really about proximity. We want to have the basic needs, the school, the park, the library, the restaurant, the shops. I was working in the US, and then the following week I went to work in Madrid. This is Real Madrid, the stadium right in the middle of the city, no parking lot. People go on public transit or walking or bicycles. Some talk about the walkable city. In Portland, talk about the 20-minute city. In Paris, about the 15-minute. Other places, the 3-minute city. In Europe, through Facebook, you do groups to book clubs or movies or restaurants. In Sweden, they got something really nice, the 1-minute city. It's a public health program. So they have like 50 different modules, and you get together with your neighbors and you decide what do you want in front of your street. Do you want a barbecue, or you want trees, or you want plants, or what do you want? And then you put it on. Why? Because they want people to socialize more. They want people to be outdoors more. So it's a public health program. And the 15-minute city also depends who's doing the walking to see what 15-minute. That's why I don't like too much the concept if it's 15 or 20 or what. I like much more is a city of neighborhoods. But of course, we gotta have density. When the cities are dense, eventually everything works. Mobility and public health and education. In sprawl, nothing works. Look, this is Chicago. Wherever there's density, the climate change impact is very slow. As you go to the suburbs, it's very, very high. This is why I like this in now they're building in Atlanta. Look, sometimes we tend to think like Toronto, that you have only gigantic buildings or single-family housing, as there was nothing in the middle. These are 10 ways to have exactly the same number of units. So if you do 5-story houses, 5-story buildings next to each other, you have the same units as a 50-story building every other block, except that most people hate the 50-story building. Most people love the 5-story building. We could easily double the population of Alberta in the existing cities, in the existing footprint, just by doing 5-story buildings like that one. Also because it's a lot cheaper. If you have those, the cost of the city is only $1,400. When you go to the suburbs, it's $3,400. That's why I was saying that mobility and land use. Look at this example of Melbourne. Melbourne is going to double the population. Here, nobody walks. Why is it that nobody walks? Because there's nothing to walk to. Not a coffee shop. Why? Because there is no density. So they're saying, we're going to put BRTs or LRTs on these ones. In between, they're going to do nothing. But now, instead of having this on the streets, they're going to have 6 stories, 6 floors as of right. So now these people that didn't have anything to walk to, now they're going to have Tai Chi and yoga and pottery and also public transit, because they're going to have the density to have public transit. And also the most important thing in the building is how it lands, if it improves. I mean, Taylor Swift was in Toronto a few months ago. I like Taylor Swift because she loves bicycles. But not only she loves bicycles, but she also knows about density. Listen to what she says about density.
Towns or cities or whatever, things feel very spread out. But because of something about the New York, everything being on top of each other, like the night falls. I love LA, but you have to plan out exactly what you're gonna do. You have to park your car, you have to tell your friends where to meet you, and you figure out where you're gonna go next, and you have to get organized. It seems like there's just this magic about the city where a night just falls together and then you end up somewhere else, and you end up somewhere else, and you end up somewhere else. It doesn't seem like it happens that much anywhere else. London, it happens a bit.
Sorry, Taylor, someone doesn't like you. But anyway, we're going to do ADUs everywhere. As of right, you should be able to put an ADU on the backyard or the garage. There's so many people that have, 90% of the people in Canada want to age in place, but many people are empty nesters. They have a big house. Well, allow them as of right to split it in 4. Live in one, rent out the other 3. That's going to be great because then the owner is going to have 3 rents. If the city gives them money, then one of those should be half the rent of the others. Who's going to do those renovations? Thousands of small contractors. And who's going to benefit? The renters that are going to have options everywhere. In a smaller arterials, let's do 6 floors as of right, as the ones that I was showing from Melbourne. Look at this. This would be beautiful. On the arterials, it's complete. And on the main street, okay, allowed to do 12. Also because when it's 12, then you can do them also in wood up to 12. I think it's going up to 18 now. But anyway, just by doing 6 on the small arterials and 12 on the large ones, we could more than double the population. And of course, we don't need to double the population because Alberta is going to increase by about 50%. I mean, of course, we need to solve the housing crisis, but we got to create great cities because that's where hundreds of millions of people are going to live for hundreds of years. So we cannot do monster cities just because there's a housing crisis. Let me tell you also this, solving housing crisis thing about equity. Nobody should feel inferior or excluded. In the neighborhood city, any income level, a good city can make us happier. Meeting as equal citizens of different incomes. Equality of life. In any neighborhood, the schools, the libraries, the streets, the parks. It doesn't matter if someone is making $2 million and someone is making $50,000. If everything that is public is great. It's about democracy, democratic equality on the schools, on the parks, on the streets. And we got to have cities with nature. I think we're running out of time. I think you're going to have to invite me another time to talk about parks. I'm going to skip a little bit. Sorry. But I know that some of you were going to tell me, oh, Gil, but you don't know that in Calgary we have winter, so I'm going to tell you a little bit about parks for all seasons. I'll click really fast. Sorry. Look at this. This lake, amazing. On this one, I was in Norway. Beautiful, everybody playing on the lake. I mean, sometimes cities close. No, the dogs, if everybody had a dog, then everybody would be very fit because dog owners are out there all the time. People walk and people run. And I mean, you're going to do a movie in the winter, have a better screen and better sound and beaver tails and hot chocolate, make it even nicer so that people will go out and organize activities, programs. We got to promote, even in the winter. Don't spend money in the summer. People are going to go to the parks in the summer no matter what. We got to invest in having a really nice pizza oven and encouraging people to come out and having places like this in Copenhagen that is a round point during the summer, is skating in the winter time, and allow people to do it in their own parks. This is a river, the Red River in Winnipeg, which is truly amazing what they have done, and it's thousands and thousands and thousands of people, and now they build this. You get warm up, and then you go back out, and they put all of this to put a little bit of color, or you can go ice fishing or shopping. I mean, they have that coffee area, put some heaters, and make it nice and cozy. And then people are going to enjoy it. Sometimes in the winter, what you hate is not the temperature, but that it's dark. So put lights, lots and lots of lights. Don't call these Christmas lights. Call them winter lights. And have them from November, right after Halloween, put the winter lights. And have them till March. And I mean, everybody should have a park within walking distance. Look at this horror in some places in Europe too. Europe do good things, but also bad things. They love the car. Instead, no. This is about political will. It's not the money to do this, to change. We need politicians with courage and city staff that will support and citizens to go out and help and say, yeah, that's what we want. We want to have this because it's about friendship and solidarity and safety and love. And if you don't have a park or a school, then take over. I mean, the schools are amazing. Schools should be much more than schools. The schools should be the heart of the neighborhood. I mean, when we talk about sustainability, sustainability is using all existing infrastructures, multiple uses. I mean, every neighborhood in Calgary has a school. Every neighborhood could have a community center. The school could be the neighborhood's community center. It could be, the school should be the hub. Then you invest. This is what most of the playgrounds look like. Then you make them beautiful. But if you open it to the community in non-school hours, so from 7 to 4 is only for school. After 4, Saturdays, Sundays, holidays, look at this beautiful with allotment gardens and things. Either parking for the teachers or games for all the kids. And then this is something, I mean, all you really gotta do is to share in the non-school hours all of the outdoor areas, the gymnasium, and 3 classrooms. That's all you really need. And have farmers markets and cooking classes, and then also you can have plants and things. Look what they're doing in Paris. People say, oh, Paris, it was built like that. No, the mayor of Paris saw that people driving kids to school, they drive really fast and it becomes dangerous. He wants to make it green. Look what she's doing, school streets. What is School Street? In front of the schools, no cars. Initially, she thought about 2 hours in the morning or 2 in the afternoon. And then she said, what if we do it permanent? They have done 350. I host a bi-weekly webinar. In 4 weeks, it's going to be about this. The person that is managing school streets. Look at how beautiful it is. They design it and they go and then they build it. It's not easy. All of these car owners, they fight like crazy because they want to park there. By the way, they fight, and when they close it, they fight like crazy. First day, second day, third day, fourth day. The second week, nobody. Everybody gets used to it, and everybody loves it. So don't be afraid. You gotta do what citizens want. In Paris, they are very environmentally, so it's about having green in the city. In London, they're doing the same thing, but in London, they're not as green. But the quality of air is terrible. So the mayor is saying the schools, when you drop your kid in front of the school, the air of the classrooms near the drop-off is poison for 2.5 hours. So that's why he's doing it. Also, no, the kids were not doing physical activities, so he said the London Mile. Every day, the kids had 10-minute break in the morning. They made a 25-minute break, and every kid, every school in London, they run for 25 minutes. And he goes almost every week with a soccer star or a movie actress or actor or whatever. It's about this, it's about making it, and the schools really should be the heart. I mean, you say it's difficult, yeah, like Nelson Mandela said, it always seems impossible until it's done. This is what Calgary could be. You gotta be ambitious. You can be as good as anybody. Why not? You can be as good cycling as Copenhagen. You can have those public spaces as good as Paris. We need to change. There is not gonna be a Martian coming down. I will transform Calgary, sustainable, equitable, fun. No, change is hard. Why change is hard? Because the people that oppose change are the ones that show up. The people that are in favor do not. So you need to show up. I mean, be the change. Show up. Write the emails to the elected officials, to city staff, to the media. Go to the public meetings. If not, because doing more of the same is so much easier, especially elected officials that want to be re-elected. Don't rock the boat. Just do more of the same. No. Change is not unanimous. I mean, the public good must prevail over the particular interest. The cost of doing nothing is not nothing. So please keep in mind that it's important to do things right. But much more important is to do the right things. If you have a street without sidewalks and you repave it faster, cheaper, but still without sidewalks, you are doing things right, but you're not doing the right things. So it's much more important to do the right things. All of you, I just want to end by saying you have an amazing opportunity. Think about this. Half of the homes around the world within your lifetime do not exist today. Half of the homes that will be do not exist within your lifetime. Really incredible. Today we got about 3.5 billion people living in cities. In 40 years, we're going to have 7 billion. That's within your lifetime. What a great opportunity, because it could be people could walk and bike and take transit and have green within walking distance. In Alberta, the population in Alberta today is about 4.9 million people. In 2051, it's going to be 7.2 million. 48% growth from now till 2051. This is data of the government of Alberta. So you gotta decide, how do you wanna live? What a magnificent opportunity. Imagine how boring it is to be an architect or a planner or a landscape in Copenhagen when everything is done. And also where the population is not growing. But Alberta is gonna grow by almost 50% by 2051. I mean, you can do it. You gotta have an attitude. If not you, then who? If not now, when? You gotta be at the table. And if they don't invite you, bring a chair and sit at the table or organize the table. Because if you are not at the table, you are gonna be on the menu. And you don't wanna be on the menu. You see a parking lot that they were gonna do a park on the parking lot, and now you see they're doing a building. Oh, what happened? Did you go to the public meetings? Did you send the emails? Keep in mind, how cities are built is the most important decision of our time. This has nothing to do with left or right. This is not about political parties. It would be ideal if everybody, the NDP and the Conservatives and everybody, agreed on the what, the tree canopies and the older adults. And there might be differences on the how. Some people might want to do it with unionized workers, others might want to outsource the private sector, but that's the how, not the what. These are not technical issues. This is not a financial issue. It's about doing. So have a shared vision and do actions. Be bold and create a sustainable and equitable and fun Calgary where everybody lives happier and healthier. So let's do it now. Thank you.
Well, on behalf of the school, I want to thank you, Gil, for a really inspiring evening. It was great. I know I'm all fired up, and it did make me think that, you know, we are all going to be moving soon to our new building all together, and we do need to think about how do we make that an act of change? How do we turn our little space? Maybe we adopt that park. Maybe we think about doing things. So anyways, there's a challenge for all of us. So it was totally inspiring. We have time for a few questions.
Yes, is there a mic?
Hi there. Thank you for the presentation. I had a question, kind of a what if.
Start working the mic.
Hello, there we go. I have a question, kind of a what if. I know you ran for mayor of Toronto. I'm wondering if you were mayor of Toronto and Premier Ford wanted to take away your bike lanes from downtown, what would you say to help prevent that?
Oh, first you gotta say, don't take him. It's incredible that the mayor hasn't said anything about it. She has sold her soul to him. All of a sudden, on campaign, she promised that Ontario Place was gonna be a public park and not a private spa, and then she gave up. That the Gardiner elevator was gonna be a boulevard and gave up on that. Same thing now with the bike lanes. I mean, the bike lanes, the problem with the bike lanes is also simple. The city is very reactive in Toronto, not proactive. So they listen to the community. And some friends of mine had been advocating for a bike lane on the west side where there's very low density. And then the people in the staff proposed to city council and council allowed them to build it. That not only is low density, but it goes by the house of Doug Ford. So all the neighbors, all his friends are telling them. So at the end of the day, that's the only one that is going to be really ripped up. Why is Ford doing? Ford doesn't care about the bike lanes. Ford is totally corrupt. And now the RCMP is doing an investigation because he was going to give away a green zone, a green area to his friends. I mean, his friends, just to make it very short, just to see how can we allow this in Canada. Hopefully you young people will speak up and will be loud. The Ontario created a maze 20 years ago, places to grow. So on a green belt, his friends purchased land for around $800 million, 12 friends. And then they went to the deputy minister of housing and gave him this, and then he changed those pieces for urban. So instead of being the value from being farm to urban went from 800 million to 8 billion, 10 times. So it's a big scandal. So there's a lot of scandals. So what is Ford doing? Is having people across Ontario talk about bike lanes. He couldn't care about the bike lanes. Toronto, the issue of bike lanes is almost insignificant. We have 3% of the people cycling. So he totally changed the conversation. So people are not talking about the Ontario Place or the Gardiner or the LRTs or whatever. So I think the mayors need to speak up. But if Olivia Chow had a vision, I think that if you ask her, not only her, but almost all of the mayors in the greater Toronto area, how do you want your city to be in 2050? Absolutely no clue, no idea. She's a good person, but no idea on cities. So she really focuses on the tree and not on the forest. It's really unfortunate. Anybody else? For example, there's an LRT that all over on a low density area, also where Ford lives. It was designed and contracted above ground. Last year, Ford woke up one day and said, oh, what if we put it underground? It's going to be only 2.4 billion more. People said nothing. And he changed the contract, and now it's underground. Actually, that's also why it's not done yet, because it's very expensive and very difficult to do underground. It's a lot easier above ground. And by the way, it's not going to cost 2.4, it's going to cost 5 billion more. The same train, the same speed, fewer stations. What would I have done if I was mayor? When the day he said that, I would have gone there with a mock-up of a gigantic train and said, look, this is the same train, above ground or below ground, same speed. And what could we do with those $2.4 billion? How many houses for low income? How could we end homelessness? How many more public transit, even in the same suburbs? How more LRTs could we do? But no one thought. But what's even worse is that money is from all of the province. It's not from Toronto. It's all Ontario is paying for that. And none of the other mayors from the other 400 municipalities in Ontario said anything. So I'm really concerned what's going on through their veins. Is it honey or any question or comment? I mean, that's provocative. There should be one.
Hi, I'm very, I love your speech and lecture and everything. So my question is, so you talked about how you want to close streets to turn them to open places for walking and biking. So for those who live in that area, what should they do with the car they already have?
Well, that's only on Sundays for about 7 hours. Many of those streets are full of cars, Monday through Friday. A little bit Saturday, and very little on Sunday. So on Sundays, they go in other streets. So they can go out at less than 10 kilometers as long as they turn away in the first intersection. So they can still use it. Actually, many of the people that go out on the open streets, they have cars. That is the beauty. That is not anti-car. Everybody, people that have cars, people that don't have cars, young and old, rich and poor, it's about everybody. Any other question?
I think we have time for one more.
Last question, yes.
Gil, for the presentation. It's really great. My name is Brett. I just wanted to ask, we hear lots, of course, thank you for the example of Bogota. It's nice to hear about the Global South in terms of cities that are on their way to a transformation. We hear a lot, of course, about places like Copenhagen and Utrecht, Montreal, other centers as well that are well on their way to a transformative sort of vision of what the city can be. What are some of the places, like maybe just a couple of examples, of cities that you see that are starting to make those transformative moves that have you excited?
Well, that was the last question. Well, a city, you know where Tirana is? It's the capital of Albania. The mayor of Tirana, I've been advising the mayor for the last 9 years. When he became mayor 9 years ago, he even made fun. He said that Tirana, Albania used to be the North Korea of Europe. It's right next to Italy and Greece and all. It's fantastic. But when they were communist, there were 70 cars. Now, non-communist, there is like 350,000 cars. The cars doesn't move. The first time I went there, more than half of the trips by car were less than 1 kilometer. And it took like half an hour. Like people would say, oh, Mr. Penalosa, the car is coming. I say, look, we're going to this building. I see it. It's 2 blocks. No, driver. The driver is coming. Then I told the mayor, hey, you need to lead by example. You need to walk and bike. Well, 9 years ago, they didn't have one single bike lane. Today, they have a citywide network, complete. When I told him about the open streets on Sundays in Bogota, 2 weeks later, he began in Tirana. And it runs till today. Every Sunday, they have the open streets. They didn't have any daycare for children. He went to the private sector and asked people to donate one daycare per one of these big companies, and now they have this all over the city. They have been building parks, and they have been planting thousands and thousands of trees. He created a program that for children in elementary school, whenever they had their birthday, to give them a tree. So the city chose the tree so that it was the proper tree, the variety, and now everybody loves it because everybody has it. So if Johnny has a tree, then Lucy also wants to have a tree. So they adopted and they go. So Tirana is a very low-income city, and today you cannot go to any conference in the world about children and cities when they don't talk about Tirana. Tirana has become a great example for that. And one of the things that they're working a lot is on the Urban 95. What is the Urban 95? Is if you saw your city from 95 centimeters, that is the height of a 3-year-old, what would you change? I mean, go to any intersection, go to the sidewalk, get on one knee, and then that's 95 centimeters. Go to the park, go to anywhere, and see the city from 95 centimeters. Those are the things that they are doing. And I just want to end this by ratifying the magnificent opportunity that you have within your lifetime. You might have friends that went to the business school at the University of Calgary. And after many years, they're going to go to Unilever and be vice presidents of a toothpaste that has 12.3 market share. And for the next 20 years till they retire, their goal is to go from 17.3 to 17.6. And then they will be heroes. Instead, what you do in design, doing architecture and planning and landscape, you are going to make people happier and healthier and more fun. And you are going to go by places where there used to be a parking lot, and now there is a park with people of all ages and abilities. What an amazing possibility. For example, all of the sprawl that you have in the Canadian cities, all the sprawl that you have, imagine God is giving you 48% growth of population. Imagine that the province decided that any new project has to be in the existing footprint, all of the 48% in the existing. What happens in the suburbs? Kids don't walk because there's nothing to walk to. But if in the arterials you allow us to rise 6 floors, then all of a sudden you could fix that gigantic mistake that exists of low density, nothing to walk to. Now with 6 floors on the arterials, you can have public transit with frequency, and also on those with 6 floors, you're going to have coffee shops and bookstores and local restaurants and Tai Chi and pottery and all kinds of things. So, because imagine that the population wasn't going to grow. It would be very, very difficult to densify the suburbs without population growth. But with 50% growth in the next 35 years, it's like something coming from heaven. But then you need to pressure to make the change. In the case of Ontario, the Premier Ford wants to build all of the green belt. which would be absolutely terrible. When we have more than enough land, 90% of the arterials in Toronto are 2 floors. We could easily go to 6 floors. And also the people, the neighbors that don't want it, they don't mind 6 floors. They don't want 50 floors. They don't even want 20, but they say, oh, if it's 6, okay. I want to have 2, but if you want 6, okay, let's do 6. We could accommodate, we could double the population only on those. And also, what if we allow the single-family homes as of right? That's what they're doing in many cities. That's what they're doing in Minneapolis. In Minneapolis, all of a sudden, they eliminate all single-family housing. So it's not in Russia. It's not. I mean, the cities that don't have any housing issue, the government interferes. You go to Copenhagen. In Copenhagen, you cannot have two houses within the city. You can have a second one in the countryside, but not in the city. Also, you cannot increase the rent. If you're gonna get someone that is renting, get him out, you gotta show that you're gonna invest the equivalent to 80% of the cost. You go to Singapore. In Singapore, 90% of the land of housing is owned by the government. So then you go to Vienna. In Vienna, 70% of the housing, 35% is owned by the government, 35% the government is funding it. So the government is not communism. The governments, if we want to, why does this is the last, I promise. Last comment on this. What happened? I think capitalism is really, really, really good to be efficient. When there is supply and there is demand. If I'm making microphones and I'm charging too much, then someone is going to make microphones and charge less, and then the price is going to come down. What happens with housing? That the land is fixed. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how much demand there is. If it goes up or down, there's not going to be more land. It's fixed. That's why any city where it has allowed, like the law of the jungle, for the developers to do whatever they want, huge housing crisis. That's why one of the things, I think places like Africa, in some cities in Africa, the population is going to grow not 40%, 500%, 1,000% in the next 30 years. When they asked me for advice, I said the best advice is purchase all of the land and then have private sector develop it, but as you want to. And by the way, that's what they do in Sweden. Almost all of the countries in Scandinavia, the land around the cities is owned by the city. So when I was in Gothenburg and they were doing that citizen engagement with children, that land is owned by the city. Then the city decides where they want to grow. And then they call the private sector and they have a tender. Here we want 5 stories or 8 stories or houses or whatever, but then they decide. What an amazing opportunity that you have. And I mean, when I say that most what we have done is not very good, is because all of you know that you can do it better. You will have to do it better. And I wish you much luck. Thank you. Thank you
very much, Gil. Have a good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.